Hello, my name is Erin Raybook. I am the Student Achievement Teacher at Esmond Station K-8, and today we are going to talk about accountable talk stems with Nearpod. Now, I did this presentation on our August 23rd, 2023 Ville School District Professional Development EdTech Half Day, where I had the educators in the classroom with me, and they were working through the Nearpod with me. So it wasn't just me presenting information, it was a combination of presentation and interactive learning. It's a little bit different with me recording a Nearpod because I don't have that teacher feedback or that teacher collaboration or discussion embedded within it, but I'm going to explain to you how I did it during the professional development. So the first thing I always like to do is just an icebreaker. Mine was very simple because we were from all across the district. I just welcomed everybody and I asked them what school they were from, what do you teach, if you're not a teacher, what's your role. And this is a bulletin board on Nearpod where everybody can share where they're from and populate the bulletin board. Everybody could see where everyone was from. As the teacher or the presenter, I had the option of allowing the educators to see each other's names, allowing them to edit responses, approving posts, approving comments. I left this all off because, again, I was in a professional development with teachers. I did not feel that we needed to approve posts or approve comments. I did leave the names off only because when I got to questions, I knew that might be a little tricky or maybe uncomfortable. I didn't want their names to be shared with everybody. So the agenda for today is our direct instruction is a Nearpod presentation on accountable talk stems and how you can use Nearpod as a tool for your classroom. A workshop discussion is what I had built into this. So at the end of the presentation on the EdTech Half Day, I gave teachers time to work collaboratively in a group to create a Nearpod for the subject area of their choice. And then we had some question and answer time. The objectives that we're going to focus on and that I focused on the EdTech Half Day is Standard 2, Digital Citizen, students who recognize the rights, responsibilities, and opportunities of living, learning, and working in interconnected digital worlds, and they act and model in ways that are safe, legal, and ethical. Now, this standard varies for the different grades. So for Indicator 2A, for K2, students with guidance discuss and develop their digital identity through responsible use of technology. 3.5, students demonstrate an understanding of the role a digital identity plays in the digital world and learn the premise of their decisions when interacting online. 6.8, students cultivate their digital identities and reputations within a digital school environment, including an understanding that digital actions are permanent. And 9.12, students cultivate and manage their digital identity and reputation and are aware of the performance of their digital or other actions in the digital world. Now for my presentation, I was specifically focusing on a middle school group of individuals. So I was working with educators from across the district who taught middle school or who had middle school experience. The second standard that I focused on and that we're focusing on today is Standard 6, Creative Communicator. Students communicate clearly and express themselves creatively for a variety of purposes using the platforms, tools, styles, formats, and digital media appropriate to their goals. So it's Indicator 6C. K2 students with guidance create digital artifacts to share ideas in multiple formats. 3.5, students in collaboration with an educator create digital artifacts using multimedia tools to communicate ideas visually, graphically, and auditorily. 6.8, students create artifacts using digital tools to communicate complex ideas visually, graphically, and auditorily. 9.12, students communicate complex ideas clearly using various digital tools to convey the concepts textually, visually, graphically, etc. So again, I was focusing more towards that middle school, that 6-8 group of educators and how they can use Nearpod in their classroom and how these standards can apply to their students. So before we get started, just think in your mind, what do you know about accountable talk stems? What is your knowledge of Nearpod, and what do you hope to learn from this session? Now, if we were doing Nearpod together, you would write your response in here, then press submit, and as the teacher or the presenter, I would receive your feedback. And then at the end, when everybody has submitted, or if I put a timer on this, I could then share it with the whole group where everybody would see the response on their screen without the name being shown. So if you wanted to stay anonymous, or you want your class to stay anonymous, this is a great way to share that feedback or give automatic praise or go over a discussion like this without letting people know who said what. You can also, like I said, change it to where people can see each other's names on here. But for my purpose, I left it anonymous. Everybody answered. I shared a few, and we had a discussion of, oh, you said that you know a little bit about accountable talk stems, but you want to learn more. Could you tell us maybe what you want to learn? So it opens that discussion up. Whoops, I went a little too fast there. So an overview of what will be discussed. A discussion of accountable talk stems and how to use them within the classroom and school, how to build accountable talk stems into the classroom and school culture, the importance of having prompts and protocols for online learning and use. So let's use some tech tools and have fun. Draw or insert a picture of what your classroom looks like when you are trying to get your students to actively engage, participate, and share during an online activity. What are some of the things students say to each other? Be as creative as you want. So for this one, again, this is where you would draw or you could add a picture in, and I gave everybody a certain amount of time. Let me see if I press teacher. Yep, I gave everybody 2 minutes. So I'm not going to press this because I wouldn't be able to draw on it, but if I press start, then that would allow anybody who's in the Nearpod to start drawing. But since I'm just the only one in here right now, I'll show you what I mean by drawing. So down here you have some tools, so you could choose your color, or your students could choose their color, and then you could draw a picture. If you wanted to add an image, you could look for an image of things in Google, so classroom with students, and then you could insert that. So the question was, again, draw or insert a picture of what your classroom looks like when you're trying to get your students to actively engage, participate, and share during an online activity. So what I'm going to add oops, it failed, and sometimes that happens. I'm going to add a cricket. Now, I added this cricket. If I were the student, I would then press submit, but again, I can't press submit because I'm the teacher here. But I would press submit, and then the teacher would receive it automatically. So if my student pressed submit, and as the teacher or presenter I saw a cricket, that would make me think, okay, what do they mean by that? And so then once everybody had submitted, I would say, I saw somebody posted a picture of a cricket, and I would again share it. I'm able to share it with the rest of the class. And so on their screen, they would see the cricket, I would see the cricket, and we could open up that dialogue. Why is there a cricket? Would somebody like to share with us why there's a cricket? So my reasoning for the cricket is whenever I try to do an online activity with my students in my classroom where I wanted them to actively engage, participate, and share, it was silent. It was crickets before Nearpod. So before Nearpod, if we opened up a Google Doc in the classroom and we were going to all write a story together, or we were going to do notes together, or maybe it was a presentation in Google Slides. I'm thinking back to when we were just starting to use technology in the classroom and Google was the craze and we were using Google for everything. Whenever I had something like a classroom collaborative board up, students did not want to participate. They got quiet, and that's because it wasn't anonymous. But in Nearpod, with it being anonymous, where I don't have to have the names of the students shown, everybody wants to participate. So before Nearpod, it was crickets in my classroom. So what are accountable talks? Accountable talking stems are sentence starters that help students participate in meaningful and productive discussions. They provide students with a framework for responding to others' ideas, asking questions, and sharing their own thoughts. Accountable talk stems can help students to be more clear and concise in their communication, listen more effectively to others' ideas, build stronger arguments, support their claims with evidence, engage in respectful and productive discussions. So accountable talk is everything you need to know to foster collaborative conversations within the classroom or on an online digital community. So there's a video that I shared with everybody. Now, if you were in a PD that's virtual and you wanted them to just play this on their own, I would recommend that, because sometimes when we're mirroring a screen virtually, it just gets distorted. So if I were doing a virtual PD or virtual class lesson, I would do students play. And then on their end, they would press play for the video and they put their headphones on and listen to it. If you were in a PD or in a classroom setting and you wanted everybody at the same time to watch the video and listen to it, you would press teacher plays. I'm going to do that right now, and we're going to watch this video. Maybe we will.
Accountable talk is one of those buzzwords in education that may make this strategy sound more complicated than it actually is. In the world of education, accountable talk is the strategy teachers use to encourage students to have more meaningful conversations in the classroom. The idea is that when students talk, we have to hold them accountable. We can't just let them off the hook with a simple, I agree, I disagree, or even an, I don't know. By asking students to explain their thinking and expand their statements, we're encouraging metacognition, growth mindsets, and collaboration all at once. Enforcing accountable talk often looks like anchor charts in the classroom with phrases that teachers want students to use during discussions and share-outs. Teachers should encourage students to use accountable talk when questioning, answering, and discussing. When questioning, accountable talk sounds like, what evidence do you have to support what you're saying? Can you explain that idea to me? And even a simple why or why not when answering. Accountable talk sounds like, I think because, or I believe blank because, or even I'm not sure because. Even when students don't know an answer, when we allow them to state that fact and simultaneously encourage them to explore what the barrier to their understanding is, we're encouraging a culture of growth over perfection, as well as inviting others in the class to present the information in a way that breaks down that understanding barrier more effectively. In a discussion setting, students might use phrases such as, I agree or disagree with my classmate, so-and-so, about whatever the idea is, because, or I would like to build off what my classmate so-and-so said about whatever was said, because. It's important that in these discussion statements, students specifically reiterate the idea or concept they are referencing to demonstrate their active listening. Essentially, accountable talk establishes a routine of deeper and clearer thinking in the classroom, which automatically increases engagement during questioning and discussion, because students are able to more easily access material as a result of it being broken down by their peers. As students become more used to and able to explain their thinking clearly, their writing will improve, making accountable talk a strategy that builds transferable and lifelong skills for learners. Accountable talk is useful in all levels of education and can be enforced in each teacher's unique way through the use of sentence starters and probing questions. See you.
All right, so let's practice using accountable talk stems. Answer the following question with either I believe, I think, I am not sure. So accountable talk stems can help engage students in meaningful conversations pertaining to a lesson being learned. This can be done in a traditional classroom setting, but also online. How can you engage your students with accountable talk stems in a digital or online learning environment? So again, if we were doing this together, I would have you answer this question, and then as soon as you were done, you would submit it, and then we would share as a collective group. So I could answer and show you how to type in here. I believe that you can use accountable, I can't spell, talk stems in both a digital and online learning I can engage. Well, I'm not going to finish typing that. It's going to take too long. But you get the gist. So I do believe that you can use accountable talk stems in both the digital and online learning environment. You can engage students in fun, meaningful ways. So having students answer questions in Nearpod, such as this, it's exciting when they see theirs on the screen. So even though their name is not displayed, you're still going to have students who, once their answer or response is on the screen of everybody in the classroom, they light up. And some of them will say that's me or whisper it depending on how you have your management in your classroom. But even those kids that are super quiet and never want to share, the minute you share theirs, they do light up because they know it's anonymous and theirs is being highlighted. So finding just different ways to make it work for your classroom is engaging, and it's just conducive for a whole just positive learning environment. So digging a little deeper, we're going to talk about accountable talk stems, or also known as academic language stems. It's a short video we're going to watch, and while you're watching it, just kind of think of how you could create a digital lesson to implement these types of discussions within your classroom or professional development. So again, I'm going to press teacher plays because we're not doing this live or in a group. I'm just recording my presentation that I made. But again, if I were in the classroom and I had a whole group of people, I would press teacher plays. If I were doing this remotely and I had students or staff on a Zoom, I would probably do student plays.
So we're going to use some academic language stems. Academic language stems really are just sentences, or I call them often sentence frames, that we provide students to add to what they're going to say or to get them started. A lot of our students, that's the problem. They have a thought, but they don't quite know how to say it, so they'll just say it in one word. Well, we really want to stretch their sentences out. We want to have them elaborate a little bit more. So the reason we use academic language stems, the why, is so they, first of all, use correct English sentences, grammar, so that they're going to use those correct statements, and they're going to elaborate on what they're saying. So it really increases their academic language.
And it's such a great way to monitor comprehension. It helps you really know if they're understanding what they're reading. So, which is a great measure of measuring comprehension.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really important for our ELLs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting them talking.
Yeah.
Well, we have a product for you, a download for you that has the basics of everything you would need. It has anchor charts, bookmarks that go over lots of different examples of academic language stems. Now, this list is not the say-all.
So I actually provide a link to this website they're discussing, and in the PD that I did, I had it available to teachers as well, that I shared with them in an email so that if they didn't want to download it, they didn't have to. I already downloaded it for them.
Y'all, there's tons of different ways we could have organized this list, but I'll just go over the different subtitles or categories we have for academic language stems. So first we have expressing a thought. Then we have repeating, responding to a peer, clarifying, adding on, agreeing or disagreeing, and revising. Within those different categories, we have examples of an academic language stem that could be appropriate, that could be flexible and used with many areas within our language arts, even math, writing, anything. So for example, in expressing a thought, we have an academic language stem that says, when the author said blank, I thought of. Maybe you could use, it seems to me that. So we just have some examples of ways to help students speak academically to each other to help them use proper academic language.
Yeah. And be able to elaborate on what they said or what a partner said in a discussion.
Yeah, and teaching them how to talk to each other, to agree with one another, to disagree with one another is so important.
Yeah.
And it's in our core, and we need to make sure we're teaching it well.
Yeah.
And it will only deepen our understanding of anything we're learning.
Yep, exactly. So we're going to get our kids talk.
Okay. So this is that website. You can embed websites in Nearpod and then share it with, during your presentation for them to click on, and it will take them to that external website. So this is the website. It's teaching your students to use Accountable Talk. There's a really cool, there it is. Let me get out of that. There's a really neat podcast that they have, just the Classroom Commute. And it's a teacher's guide to encouraging deeper and more meaningful talk among students that I encourage that you listen to. And then down here, if you go through it, it talks about what is accountable talk. Accountable talk is an intentional, open-ended conversation where participants listen, add on to each other's comments, and use clarifying questions to make sure they are understanding what others are saying. As you can see, this right here ties in perfectly with Nearpod and what I'm trying to say with Nearpod. Nearpod allows you to have intentional, open-ended conversations with a group of people, especially those who might be uncomfortable sharing in a large group. We all feel that, uncomfortable stomach, cringe when we're called upon in a staff meeting or when a student's randomly picked in the classroom to say something. It kind of helps alleviate that. And then once everybody gets comfortable, those rich conversations start to take place. So this just goes through the things that I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. All right, so getting back to my question, how can we use accountable talk stems in a digital or online classroom? So again, I had everybody brainstorm, and then I asked them to share. You were asked to think about how you can use accountable talk stems in a digital lesson. Do you think accountable talk stems work better with one particular subject area when it comes to a digital lesson, or do you think it works with all subject areas? Explain your thinking. And again, everybody would answer there. Now, this opened up a wonderful conversation with the group of educators that I was working with. They all agreed that it could be used in any subject area. I had some math teachers who shared that it would be a great way to really explain how to solve a problem, because not everybody might solve an equation the same way. There's multiple ways to learn math and solve math. I mean, ultimately you're going to get the right answer or the same answer, but some people might learn it in a different way. And so I thought that was interesting. Another teacher that had shared is a social studies teacher, and they were sharing how this would be really great to get, a conversation going about the things that they teach in history that there's a lot of opinions on. And so without calling anybody out or having anybody feel uncomfortable with them sharing, they can do it anonymously, and then you can just have that open discussion on things. And let me go back to that. You don't have to share any that are not appropriate. Sometimes you are going to get students who will type something that they shouldn't or put a picture that they shouldn't. For example, I had a student a few years back when I taught 5th grade that liked to write poop or fart. Yes, I said that. They would write that just to be funny, and I never shared it. They knew that I had it. I never shared it. And the great thing about Nearpod is that you can, after the presentation and after you teach your lesson, these are saved in that lesson. So you can go back, download that picture, and show parents or have a conversation with the student. I would oftentimes go to my Nearpod, and I'll show you after this, download the artifacts, and then I would sit one-to-one with my students and be like, okay, explain to me why you did this. And so that's just another great tool with Nearpod. And it goes for professional developments too. Sometimes there are educators who are very just passionate about the topic, and maybe their response is not appropriate for the setting that you're in. You still have it. Maybe you can go back, you can circle back and meet with that person individually, but not necessarily share it with a whole group. So accountable talks can work for all subject areas. That's the truth. It can work in everything. Digital learning can include meaningful academic discussions. So if you build accountable talks into your classroom culture, it should flow over into online discussions. Now, this could be classroom culture or school culture, depending on where you're at in your career. Remind students about accountable talks when online. Post phrases on chat room boards. Print out accountable talk prompts for students to keep on hand. Use them in everyday activities. Use them in your conversations. When I was teaching 5th grade and became the online teacher during the COVID pandemic, I had built it into my online classroom culture where everybody knew it was a safe place to have a conversation. We knew that we were going to answer and respond appropriately. And I had little posters on my Schoology page. So I took some time after we had our discussion in my group that I met with, and I asked them to think about things that make them uncomfortable when asked to share ideas or to participate in a discussion with your colleagues. The majority of the responses that I received was being criticized or being incorrect or just not feeling valued. Another of the conversations or the posts that some teachers and educators made were, this one really stuck out to me. There was an educator who was first-year educator, and this person had made a comment saying, not knowing as much as my colleagues and feeling that fear of just that fear. I don't want to share too much because, again, those were personal thoughts and feelings, and that was during our session, but just to give you an idea of what everybody had discussed. And so, so when we're asked to share our ideas in a classroom setting or in a professional development setting, it usually is fear that comes up. Oh my gosh, I think I know the answer, but I don't know 100%. What if I say it and somebody's going to criticize me? What if somebody's snarky? We go towards a negative. That's always what happens. That's just where we go. And so we got to break that. We got to change that to where it's not uncomfortable. It's something that we embrace, and we have to do that by building it into our culture, either as a school or online community or classroom or, colleagues. We have to make each other feel comfortable with sharing, and that nobody is going to be criticized, and that everybody's thoughts and feelings are valued, and that everybody's response is valued, and that there's no wrong answer. Something might be incorrect, but we can fix that. But just, again, building that into the dialogue that you have with your students or with your staff. So it's important to establish classroom norms. So a lot of times, like I said, students are afraid to speak their minds for fear of being criticized. It's the same with adults. Adults are afraid to speak their mind for the same thing, for that backlash. So establishing a classroom environment that is safe for students to openly discuss their thoughts on an academic topic. Ways to do this: inform the students from the first day that all ideas are heard and taken seriously. No one is ignored. No one is being criticized. And promote thinking. And again, you can do this as a school, you could do this as a staff, you could do this as a classroom teacher, just making sure that everybody feels valued. And Nearpod is great for this. So I would always start at the beginning of the school year where my students were anonymous on Nearpod. They did not see their names when I shared the responses. But as we started to build that classroom culture where everybody was comfortable, I had all of my students by the end of the year participating, and everybody was comfortable and knew the norms. I could put their names. They were asking for their names to be displayed so that they knew who answered what and could shout out or share. And so it got to that point where I would share and it would have the student's name, and they would go, "That's a great response. You know what else is great?" And then they would add on to it. And it was a beautiful thing. This is an example of my classroom norms that I would have in my Schoology page. I just, again, would reiterate it every single day because, again, I was a digital teacher for a while. And so at the beginning of my lesson, I would say, all right, we're going to be doing a Nearpod today. Remember, we're going to participate and share. We're going to be honest. We're going to have a positive attitude. We're going to be respectful. We're going to listen. And then I would have them repeat after me. These are some of the norms, again, that I would just reiterate to my students. Listen and read with respect who is speaking and typing. Everyone has an idea that is valued and taken seriously. I instilled that from day one in my classroom when I taught. I would always share with them that everybody has an idea, everyone is valued, and everyone is taken seriously. We might not always agree with somebody's opinion or what they're sharing, and that's okay, but we'll disagree in a respectful way using evidence. Use your accountable talk STEM sentence starters to share an idea, join a discussion, agree, disagree with someone, and for clarification. So I was really big on that too. If somebody said, I don't agree, why? You have to give me that why. And so just not those yes and no questions. Use evidence to support your response, work together and support one another, and learn from each other. This takes work. It does not happen overnight. It will not happen within a week. You have to build it into your classroom culture. One thing I also did for my norms, and I didn't write it here, is I would never allow my students to say this is easy, because what's easy for one is not easy for another, and that was just part of my classroom norm. And it got to the point where they never would say easy, and at the school that I taught at, it became this thing where I would get 5th grade students who had heard, oh, you're the teacher who doesn't allow someone to say easy. And it's like, yes, that's me. But it was a norm again in my classroom, just like these are norms. So once you establish your classroom norms, you need to establish phrases that you want your students to say. So if you want them to contribute into a lesson, I think, whatever you're discussing, I wonder if, I have an idea, I'm thinking. If they agree, I agree with your answer because I would never let them just say yes. They had to use one of these phrases. I think you are correct because I agree with your reasoning. I like that. Accountable talk is wonderful to use if you do small reading pullback groups, if you're doing literature circles. When I taught 6th grade science, we used it when we were doing our experiments or when we did a lab. It's just a great way to ensure that the students are having meaningful discussions. And I use this during my data teams that I hold. I will ask teachers a question, and without prompting them, I will say, oh, well, I wonder if, or can you elaborate on that a little more? I would like to add. And so just by me changing my phrase or phrasing, it helps with others as well. So some more example phrases for clarification. When you said blank, I didn't understand. Could you explain? I was wondering. Can you explain what you mean in a different way? Phrases to add on also, I think, have you thought about, I agree, disagree because, I thought after you said, I like what you said about. Asking questions, does anyone think of, what do you think about, how do you feel if, I was wondering, what if. This is a poster from that website that I shared. Now it is geared for the younger grades, but you could easily take this and make it for middle school or high school, or even with adults. I would just get rid of the little cute pictures. So once I was done discussing this, I put it back on everybody that was in the room with me, and I said, how can we put accountable talk stems into place within the classroom and our school? After you answer, please use a sentence starter from the attached PDF. Again, Nearpod's awesome because you can attach a PDF to it. So they clicked on it, they looked at this, and then they responded. We had some really great discussions on this. So again, those teachers would go back and think, the math teachers is what I keep going back to because they were very excited about, I can use this in math. And I loved that because a lot of times people feel that accountable talk stems are only for ELA, and that's not true. You can use it in every subject area. In math, if you wanted to do it when you're having students solve a question or during your bell work, you could say, could you explain how to solve this problem in words? And then what I heard you say is, or my evidence in science, it's a great tool. So to recap, make accountable talk stems part of your classroom culture. Use technology to help with accountable talk stems. Have posters with your classroom talking prompts. Give students handouts with your talking prompts. Explain to students why you use these prompts. Post talking prompts on your digital platforms. All right. So I had them do something kind of fun. I thought it was fun, but I had them practice some accountable talk stems on a debatable topic. So this was my example of how to use accountable talk stems in the classroom using a digital tool. Please read the attached PDF and answer the following question. Why do you think so many people want to believe that Bigfoot is real? Do you believe that Bigfoot exists? Why or why not? Explain using, explain using, come on. Well, it cut off for me. Well, it's to say explain using your accountable talk stem sentence starters. So the PDF that I added was, why do so many people still want to believe in Bigfoot? So I gave everybody a few minutes to kind of skim through this and then respond. And it was so much fun because you had some people who said, people believe Bigfoot exists because he is real, or I believe that Bigfoot exists because. It was just awesome. And this was with a group of adults. Now I did this very same thing here with a group of 6th grade students in science. We were at the end of the school year and we were having some fun with tying in some of our research standards for writing and pseudoscience and science standards for just environment. And the conversations were wonderful. And because I built that classroom culture of everybody is accepted, everybody is valued, they were so respectful with each other when I asked them this question. They responded with pictures. They responded with using evidence from the text. When somebody would say that Bigfoot is real because, and then they would answer it, somebody would answer underneath, I, agree with you, here is why, or I strongly disagree with your point because, and it was beautiful. So then I gave them a quiz promoting student-centric discussion in the classroom is accountable talk. And if I press teacher here, you'll see it starts the activity. So there were 3 questions just on what we talked about. I'll go ahead and press start because it's not really going to do anything on my end here, but you can see what it looks like. So I pressed start. As the teachers were answering it, I would see them, I would see which answer they chose and if they got it right or wrong. At the end of the time, I could press share, and then all of the scores are individually shared with that individual person so they can see how they did on it. It doesn't share with anybody else, just that person. So I went ahead and I exited Nearpod, not Nearpod, but the Nearpod presentation that I was doing, just so that I could show you a couple of things inside Nearpod. So on my lessons over on the left-hand side are all the lessons that I've done in the past or in the present when I substitute classes or whatnot. This is the presentation that I did with Accountable Talk STEMs. The one cool thing I wanted to show you is my reports. So on my reports, if you click that, you can go to the lesson that you had just presented or that you have done with your class, and you can pull the data from it. Now, if I click on the one that I did today, well, actually it's not going to show up. I don't want to click on these because it will have that personal information, because again, I can see the name of the people that were present, and I don't want to give that information out. But it allows you, if you click on it, it will go to where you had your drawing activities or your writing activities, and then you can see what people responded. And it's great for the classroom because this is how you can grade an assignment, if you give them a quiz, you can have a quiz grade. It's just really neat. Again, I don't want to click on any of these right now just because it has student information and adult information that I just don't want to share out. I just encourage you to play with reports. School library. I'm still attached to Desert Willow, but this is the school library for Desert Willow where you can put it in folders where things belong. The district library, you can add to the district library. These are things that everybody has made and shared. It's just a great collaborative experience in Nearpod, I think. So thank you so much for listening today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, my name is Erin Raybuck. My email is raybucke, RABUCKE @valeschooldistrict.org, and my phone number is 520-879-3414. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.